Hello and welcome all listeners to Xavier Newswire Live, the radio show that will catch you up on all of the Xavier news from Ledgewood Drive to Dana Avenue and beyond. Today is October 19th and we are bringing the show to you live on XUFM. I'm your host, David Ludwig.
And I'm your co-host, Hunter Ellis. Today I'm filling in for Will Pembroke, who unfortunately just made his way into quarantine. Will, if you're with us, we miss you, buddy. We wish you were here.
I love you, Will. And in this episode of Newswire Live, you'll get to hear the Newswire Multimedia crew bring you the rundown on the SGA amendments, including an interview with Newswire Editor-in-Chief Heather Gast, as well as an article on the campus Wi-Fi for our feature on the print section. That's enough for me now, so let's get right into the show. At this time, I will turn it over to Heather Gast with her article on the Student Government Association, written by one of our interns.
Yes, it was written by Carter Daniels. The Student Government Association is expected to vote on constitutional amendments in early November. If approved, these changes would be in effect for the 2022-23 school year and would reduce the number of voting members of the Senate and add a non-voting executive council. SGA has put these amendments together to improve student involvement and participation. The reason why we wanted to make these changes is that we see, especially from a student government perspective, from a campus-wide perspective, and from an administrative perspective as well, involvement has been down on a lot on this campus, Senator Andrew Garrity said. We're thinking that these changes can rejuvenate student government and provide senators with a roadmap to have a better fit for them concerning their jobs. The proposed amendments adjust the format of how SGA runs by replacing one of the vice presidential roles with a Speaker of the Senate and introducing an executive council. Additionally, instead of 20 senators, the proposed amendments would reduce the Senate to 17 members. The Executive Council is made up of the Speaker of the Senate, the Director of Communications, Director of Finance, and 3 Chief Justices. The Speaker of the Senate is an elected senator, nominated by executives and confirmed by the Senate. Some of the jobs of the Speaker would be to report to executives and preside over SGA meetings. The Director of Communication is a non-voting member elected by the student body. Some duties of the Director of Communication are to be in charge of social media, count meeting minutes, update the SGA website, respond to SGA emails, create flyers and promo, and is the first point of contact for any Newswire interview and meetings. The Director of Finance is preferably a finance or accounting student elected by the student body. They are also non-voting members who would maintain and track SGA budget and assist with club budgets, if necessary, along with helping out executives with the student activity budget. Under the new proposed constitution, there would be 3 Chief Justices elected by the student body, intended to reduce conflict within clubs. Chief Justices would report to the executives and ensure the Constitution is updated regularly as SGA sees fit. In the past, SGA hasn't faced a competitive race. If you fill out the paperwork, you can walk in the door normally, Garrity said. The consequences of this is that the executive board would have to appoint many senators. It seems that people don't like to run for SGA during elections, but when they can apply for a vacancy and apply for an appointment, that's when people come in as well. Last year, the Senate floor on the last meeting of last year's term voted on changes very similar to this proposal. The reason that the changes didn't pass last year is because the senator applied a friendly amendment to the Constitution to the changes, and that took away a lot of the votes that it needed to pass, Garrity said. I hope that these constitutional amendments pass. I believe it will pass. It is currently in scheduled business. However, SGA may table it for a few more weeks because people need to look over it, Garrity stated.
All right, and now we're going to have a quick interview slash discussion segment with my co-host Pro Tem, Hunter, and with Heather, who just read the article. Welcome both of you. Oh, and our intern Chloe. How y'all doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing, David?
Oh, I'm well. Best job in the world, so always a highlight.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah. So Heather, do you want to? I know you have some thoughts on this matter. You want to just throw those out into the void?
Yeah, well, on the constitutional amendments, it's not really clear when those will come up or anything, but something that has really happened because the deadline was last Wednesday was we have some more information on executive Student Government Association tickets, as well as the number of people who will be running to be senators. And it's not looking great.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Originally, I've been in contact with the Board of Elections President, Peter Korchak, and because Newswire co-hosts a debate between the executive tickets. And at one point this past month, there were 3 tickets running. Last time I talked to him, there were 2 tickets running, and now there's only 1. And out of the 20 seats for senators, there are 9 people running, one of which is a returning member.
That's a little concerning, possibly.
So, yeah, Heather, to build off of that, I think one of the more concerning aspects of this news that we found out about today, with 9 senators running for next year, is that only one of them is returning. We've already seen massive turnover this year in our SGA, where there were only about 3 to 4 returning members in that SGA.
Right.
And we saw a long process at the beginning of the year where with so many new senators and people that were unfamiliar with the way that SGA functions, that it took a month or maybe even beyond a month for those senators to understand exactly, how everything would go, how things would function, and to build up a rapport with each other.
Right.
So we saw a transition period where it took time for anything to even start getting accomplished with this SGA in itself. And then COVID obviously threw a wrench in that even further, of them building that and making progress and passing things. So to only see 1 senator returning as of right now, that's really concerning. Another implication of only having 9 on the ballot who completed their paperwork on time. As the Constitution is written, the way that it stands, the executive ticket that wins the election, now there's only 1, so therefore if
no confidence vote passing.
Yes, if they pass the no confidence vote coming up next Wednesday, they will appoint 11 senators. That's a majority, and the way that most things work in the Xavier Senate, all you need is a simple majority to pass things.
Yeah, it operates on that first past the poll system of just whichever has the most votes wins.
Right, and given that 11 out of the senators could be appointed by the executive ticket, that would mean that we would have 11 senators, a majority of the Senate, who would have been appointed by the executive ticket, which, in my opinion, could lead to some moral conflicts of interest and that kind of thing with potential votes in the future, where there might be a contested vote, but, given that 11 of them were appointed by the executives, if there is a certain initiative that the executives would want to be pushed,
more than likely, yeah.
that could be an issue.
Yeah, and to build off what you brought up a lot of stuff there, Hunter, but with the idea that there could be, conflicts of interest with the number of appointed people. I have worked, with the advisors of SGA, the ones who stick around, Dustin and Leah, and I am pretty confident that they would be, really careful to work around that. But what you were saying about how long, when you have a majority of first years or just people who are brand new to student government, who most of the Senate body is like those newcomers, and having everything take so slow at the start. So I think it feeds into this cycle of SGA not feeling like it's something worth being a part of, apparently, if, all those people aren't coming back. But, if you're not getting anything done for the first month you're there, that's really disheartening.
Yeah, I think that turnover is a good thing to an extent because it's a great way to get fresh perspectives in, and stop things from becoming super like stale politically wise. But I think that it only works to an extent. You need the experienced people there to be guides, to be mentors to the new people coming in. And it's also an important thing from an efficiency standpoint, because if no one knows how anything's working, then nothing's getting done, obviously.
Yeah, and I think like something to keep in mind with this turnover we're talking about and how currently there's only one person returning is that, I mean, when we had those two executive tickets, there were 2 or 3 senators on there. It was Michaela Connors, Andrew Garrity, and Olivia Bigham, who were running on a ticket. And when you run on executive, you can't run for Senate. So I wonder if, these tickets that have dropped out, like 6 people's worth, could be people who are returners for the Senate.
Oh, I want to know, Chloe, coming in as a first-year Xavier student, knowing that like 17 out of 20 spots were only 17 out of the 20 spots were people who actually ran. There were only 17 candidates in last election and 9 in this. What does that really like kind of put that impression on an incoming student about the level of student involvement at Xavier, especially in like the political scape?
Yeah, and David, really quick too, just to add on to that, 17 people ran last year out of the 20 slots, so 3 needed to be filled immediately. Upon the first meeting of the semester, another spot needed to be filled when a class conflict arose. And since then, there have been 2 more slots vacated throughout the year. So this executive ticket themselves has appointed 6 senators to positions on SGA this year. And in addition, this is a growing concern. I believe the year before that, there might not have been enough. Heather, you'd be more like to talk about that, but
yeah, we've definitely made this a little bit of an angled question to you, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say it makes me wonder how like truly representative SGA is of the actual Xavier student body, and it makes me like question why people aren't running again. Like, what is going on that makes them not eager to want to be a voice for change within this government association?
And Chloe, what do you see going on within those SGA meetings? As you are the SGA reporter for the print this year. There's these constitutional amendments that we've been talking about that would, in part, at least those who are proposing the bill, you would think correct some of these issues by limiting the number of senators from 20 to 16, which would be a more manageable number. What are the discussions around that bill in SGA looking like right now? We've seen that it's been tabled. Can you give us some insight to that?
I feel like, well, it's been tabled, and definitely today in SGA, it was very picked apart. Nitty-gritty details were being questioned. I mean, it just makes me realize, I guess, how controversial these changes are. Like, are they really improving the structure of SGA, or are they just another thing to get done?
I think that's really well said. For me, at least, I know I'm not super up to date on a lot of the things that SGA is talking about, and I'll admit that. But I definitely see what in conversations I have with people about it. Hunter, we've had several pre-show conversations about SGA. I've talked to Thomas a little bit about what's going on, and it seems like a lot of the SGA stuff is a little uncertain, especially in the future of how things are going to run. What's it going to look like getting out of pandemic? What are things even going to look like next semester? Having to run things now over Zoom and figure out how to do those things efficiently. And I think that definitely doesn't help when there are not as many people who are interested in getting involved.
And just to point out, too, as Carter wrote in the story for today, even though these constitutional amendments have been proposed, we could question whether they might fix some of the fundamental issues in SGA, but they aren't even slated to take effect until the 2022 election.
Oh, really?
So that wouldn't fix the immediate issue of the fact that as of right now, as we're speaking, there are only 9 senators on the ballot. And just to add some context to this conversation, In conversation with Peter Korchak, the chair of the Board of Elections, I have some quotes that I'd like to share with you that he said to me today.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So he noted that there may be more than 9 by the time the election rolls around. He said, "We are working with people on a case-by-case basis to see if they're still able to run. But we are not extending the deadline."
So is it people who have displayed interest previously but didn't fill out all of the paperwork?
I'm not sure. And I know last year there were a couple senators who had gone to the Senate question nights, kind of like talking with the Board of Elections about what SGA does.
Info sessions, yeah.
Yeah, the info sessions. And they had expressed interest, but they didn't get like their signatures turned in on time.
Okay.
So there were a couple instances last year where there were exceptions made like that.
Interesting.
I can't confirm to you, what the case-by-case bases are.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that the Board of Elections is doing as much as they can in order to fill some of these slots, given that there are only 9 people on the ballot and 20 slots.
I think I would have liked a little bit clearer wording on that. Case-by-case basis is such a... Granted, it's a flexible term for a reason, and for good reason, but sometimes it just feels like when people resort to case-by-case basis, us as a student body are left a little in the dark about who's going to be allowed to represent us.
So I imagine, like, what that sounds like to me is that, like, the application is open, but, like, you can reach out to them. I definitely hope I run into Peter, on the yard or something to ask him about it, or at least one of us does. But another thing besides people being added, as candidates is people drop. That's not an unusual thing for having for these Senate elections.
Yeah. And in addition, Peter said, by next Monday, the 26th, the list of senators will definitely be finalized unless there's some extraordinary circumstance. But this election has lots of uncertainty, just like everything else this year. So we're trying our best to keep it simple and keep everything informed. That said, Peter did confirm the election will be on Wednesday, the 28th, no matter what.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap this up then. Thank you, all 3 of you, for the wonderful input, the wonderful conversation. Listeners, if you have any thoughts that you would like to share during our intermission, you can call our phone line. We're going to take a short intermission. If you call, we will take it, hear your opinion. But other than that, when we come back, we will have Chloe Salveson reading our campus catch-up. Hello again and welcome, listeners. We would like to give a special thanks to Rafael Krux for the use of the song Inspiration, which was the music that you just heard over Intermission. If you have any thoughts or feedback for the Newswire Multimedia crew, send them over to the email, which is xaviernewswire@gmail.com. Just send any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns that you have over there. Also, if you ever miss any of our episodes, you can find them on YouTube. Just search Xavier Newswire to find our channel. And now we have Chloe Salveson with the campus update.
So 1019 Dana had a fire on Sunday night caused by a washing machine overheating. Xavier recently released a statement on Instagram announcing the formation of a civil rights commission and acknowledging structural racial bias on Xavier's campus. The statement read, "Students, we see you. We care about you. We are committed to working with you for a change. A few weeks ago, hundreds of our students held a protest. They were accompanied by faculty and staff from across campus. Our students protested anti-blackness and systematic racism, and specifically the court decision on the killing of Breonna Taylor. Our students were clear. Personal, institutional, and systematic racism are significant and real obstacles our students experience on Xavier's campus. They are right. As a university, we have done much in recent years to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we must do much more to combat racism. One next step, Father Graham has charged the creation of a commission on civil rights. The work of this body will be driven by students, administrators, faculty, and staff. Students, we see you. We care about you. We are committed to working with you for a change. To all, let Xavier University be clear. Black Lives Matter." There's a Community Action Day coming up on October 24th. Pre-registration is on Engage XU. The College of Professional Sciences announced a new Assistant Dean, Chris Barber. SGA elections are next Wednesday, October 28th. Banner self-service is moving to the cloud, being hosted by Amazon Web Services.
Thank you very much, Chloe. That was the campus catch-up with Chloe. Every week, the Newswire Live is also updating you, the listeners, on the status of COVID-19 on campus. As of October 18th, there are a total of 17 cases in the Xavier community, down from last week. 1 employee and 16 students, 7 on-campus and 9 off-campus cases. 40 students are on campus in quarantine, and 80 are off campus, and those quarantine statistics are as of October 16th. Now we will have a short transition where we will get into our feature on the print, which this week is with Erin Albright.
All right, listeners, welcome back. We're here for Feature on the Print. Erin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, first off, can you give our listeners an introduction into what your article was on the front page last week of the print edition of the Xavier Newswire?
Well, if you are a student on our campus, you have probably noticed some Wi-Fi connection issues. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jeff Edwards, who is the Chief Information Officer here at Xavier, and he kind of walked me through what has been causing the problems and how the students can fix these problems that they're having connecting to the Wi-Fi. And I got some student opinions on it, and I don't know, I think there are some changes that could be made on both the students' part and the university's part with the Wi-Fi.
So first off, let's highlight, what did the university tell you were causing the internet connectivity issues?
One of the big problems was that students have not been disconnecting when they leave a building and then reconnecting when they enter a new building, but also there are a lot of rogue networks inside the residence halls, and in past years the IT office has gone through and helped students, turn off these networks, which can be gaming consoles, printers, personal Wi-Fi networks, but this year they can't help the students redirect these networks, and these rogue networks have been interfering with Wi-Fi connection and slowing internet speeds here.
Where have been the biggest places that students have cited issues of Wi-Fi connectivity? Do you know?
Jeff did not specifically say, but from personal experience and from what I've heard from friends, it has been a lot of issues in the residence halls.
Yeah, I can certainly say Brockman, third floor of Shot Hall in the communications meeting room where we are currently.
Is a site of some bad internet connection?
Oh yeah, I always have terrible internet connection in this room.
Yeah.
I cannot get my computer to go above 1 bar, and that's if I'm lucky enough to even be able to connect to the guest network, let alone the actual student Wi-Fi. I can't step 2 feet outside of a residence hall before losing my connection completely.
Yeah. Although to be fair, here at Shot Hall, we do have enough connection to broadcast our show.
That's so fair. How do we have enough for that, but I don't have enough connection to check my email?
That I'll never know. All right. So, Erin, did the university cite the digital classes and hybrid classes that are taking place on Zoom as a reason for these connectivity issues?
No, Mr. Edwards actually said that the only reason students are, saying that they're having issues with the Wi-Fi is probably because they're noticing it more this year than they would in previous years. We're all spending more time on our laptops than ever, and he says that we have as much bandwidth as we need for internet connection here on campus, and that Zoom classes really should not be interfering with our network issues.
As you were preparing this story, did you believe that the university's answers to some of the questions that students have been asking were adequate? Or do you think that they were sort of passing off blame to where it may not belong?
I really did not think the university gave me an adequate response. The blame was really put on students for having these rogue networks and not knowing that they had to disconnect and reconnect to the Wi-Fi when they moved about campus. I kind of thought it was inappropriate that the university said, make sure to include that Xavier has been giving students the best Wi-Fi that they can, and that upgrades are being given to some of the residence halls on campus. I really think the university should be stressing that, the students can fix these rogue networks, but I don't think students even realize that that's a problem. People were not really being told when moving in that they couldn't have these rogue networks and something could have been done to prevent these issues.
I think that would be certainly worth the informational email. I mean, we get emails at the beginning of the year about Spectrum U, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's correct.
We get emails about that on how to connect to that, but I think it would also be important maybe an email about the rogue networks. Maybe we tell people about these are the things that are messing you up, like a troubleshooting email even.
So just moving along right here, besides the rogue networks and connecting and disconnecting from networks, did the university cite any plans to fix or correct some of these connectivity issues, maybe upgrade some of the plans that they have?
So the university is upgrading the Wi-Fi in Fenwick Hall over winter break. The common departments will be receiving an upgrade next summer, and currently the yard is undergoing Wi-Fi additions because there had not previously been Wi-Fi out on the yard. So the university is putting Wi-Fi routers on the outside of some of the residence halls so that students will have better access to the Wi-Fi when outside.
That was one of the big things, is that I was hanging out with a friend and we were doing work together, and I couldn't do that much work because I couldn't get any Wi-Fi outside.
Yeah, and so if students are having, continual Wi-Fi issues, where should they turn?
They should really turn to the IT office. Jeff did say that students have been citing their problems to the wrong sources, and that has caused, issues with locating where the problems are and what the problems that students are having. But students should contact the help desk, which can redirect them to the IT department.
All right, that sounds excellent. I think that about wraps up all my questions. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, David or Erin, about the story?
I'm a little curious, just from a personal standpoint. What are both of your opinions on Wi-Fi? What are your opinions on the Xavier's Wi-Fi? What are your experience with it?
Oh gosh.
From a more personal thing.
Where do I start?
You ain't getting this on the print edition.
When I go back to my dorm hall, usually at the end of the day after, sitting in the library studying for hours on end, I have to almost restart my computer every single time.
Yes.
Because I'll turn my Wi-Fi off, but then it still won't connect when I turn it back on. And I don't know, I shouldn't have to restart my laptop just to have some Wi-Fi to get to my email.
Every time I turn on my computer, it takes like 30 seconds for it to actually connect to the Wi-Fi, and I've never had that problem anywhere else.
Yeah. In general, I've had Wi-Fi connectivity issues, but whether it's on campus or at U Station, where my residence is, this semester I've experienced more Wi-Fi connectivity issues than I'd experienced all of last year, although I guess that said, all of last year only includes about 1.5, maybe 2 months in the spring until we were sent back home.
Don't bring back the hurt, Hunter.
But yeah, there have been some connectivity issues. I think the main concern that I had, there was a complete outage a couple Fridays ago of Zoom classes, and I had one class that was cut out for 30 minutes, and then another that was outright canceled. And then again, that issue was supposedly a Zoom server issue as opposed to a Xavier connectivity issue. So it's hard to tell, and I'm not an IT person. I'm not a computer science major. But it's hard to tell, when the university is telling us that it's these student issues, it's Zoom issues. At what point do we say, okay, well, there's just all kinds of issues coming from multiple different sources this year? And at what point do we expect that Xavier does something to have better connections on campus for the students? Whether, I know we have, is it Spectrum that I think does all of our Wi-Fi connectivity?
I'm not sure. I know Spectrum is in charge of the TV.
The television.
You can hook your television up and get channels through Spectrum with the base package or the student package or whatever they're offering. I'm not sure. I think they might be in charge of like the day-to-day connections, just making sure computers are able to get to the Wi-Fi and communicate properly. I think that might be Spectrum's territory, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. That said, whether we expect, Xavier University to seek out more bandwidth from whatever source that they could get it from, at some point when, especially if we're expected to be on campus and also be participating in these hybrid classes, these Zoom classes, it's a necessity to have good connection to Wi-Fi and not have all of these issues. So that being said, I think this time with these connectivity issues that students have experienced in the past couple weeks, maybe there are these issues going on. If it continues to get worse, I think that there may be, some serious complaints that might need to be brought up with the university.
I wholeheartedly agree. All right, so that will wrap us up for this segment and take us out.
Listeners, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today in this episode of Newswire Live. thank you for tuning into the show today. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns for the Newswire Multimedia crew, send them over to us at our email, which is xaviernewswire@gmail.com. Once again, that is xaviernewswire@gmail.com. We would like to give a special thanks to Carolyn Youngquist, a senior music education major here at Xavier, who produced the music heard in our intro and outro. And as always, our intermission music is Inspiration by Rafael Krux.
At this time, we'd also like to give a shout out to our staff and guests who made this episode possible. Thank you to multimedia editor and pro tem co-host Hunter Ellis, assistant multimedia editor Will Pembroke, Newswire Editor-in-Chief Heather Gast, Newswire Managing Editor Alex Budzinski, producer Will Rippey, moral support Charlie Gestalder, and our intern for this week, Chloe Salveson. Thank you also to Erin Albright for your wonderful contributions to today's show. Without all of you, this show would not be possible. If you missed any of our episodes, you can find Newswire Live full episodes and segments on YouTube. Just search Xavier Newswire to find our channel. But of course, we would love to have you live, so don't miss our next episode, which, as always, is Mondays at 7 p.m. on Mixlr. Until next time, this is David Ludwig wishing you a magnanimous Monday evening and signing off.